Today I do have two lessons in one, so there will be two quizzes on this. The first lesson is currents and climate. Started to talk about three different types of current. We've got the warm water current and then the cold water current. And the name kind of tells you the temperature of the water. You also have to think about the direction that it's coming from. So to get a warm water current, it is going to come from the equator, either north or south. And because it's coming from the equator, it is warm and the land will be warmed up. An example is the Gulf Stream, and it's going to start out in another term for you as tropics, would be at the equator. Cold water currents are similar, except they're coming from a cold part of the earth, either the North Pole south or the South Pole north. And because it's cold water, the land will be cooled. An example they give is the California current. Upwelling, another type. This is where water from the very, very deep of the ocean, which is cold, when it comes to the surface, it is actually going to have some cooling. This happens on our west coast, becomes cool because of it, parts of our west coast. And one good thing about upwelling, it's going to provide nutrients to our plants and animals. Two other types of currents are El Nino and La Nina. And this has to do with water that's moving across the Pacific Ocean. El Nino, warm water moves east. La Nina, cold water moves west. So even though it's different temperature water, different directions, they both can cause damage. Good news is they don't happen every year. It's going to be every 2 to 12 years, but they can bring, in dry areas that are usually dry, can have heavy rains, which could lead to mudslides. Areas that usually have a lot of rain, that are typically wet, could become extremely dry and have droughts. You can imagine what those mudslides and droughts, the damage they could cause. Luckily, scientists do study them and they do some predicting of when they will come. They use buoys. This is a buoy that has computers and satellites on them. They collect data that helps them to make predictions. The second lesson is called Simply Just Waves, and it's going to be on waves, obviously. Thinking about the beach here. So how are waves formed? It is wind and the energy from wind that moves through the water. It's actually a circular motion, and it's going to crash in the surf, that's at the beach, because gravity pulls it down. Parts of a wave. The two parts they focus on are the crest, which is the highest point of the wave, and the trough, which is the lowest point. They also mention wavelength, which will come up in the next slide, which is just the distance from one crest to one crest, or you could do the distance from trough to trough, either one. Our math equation here has to do with the speed of the wave, and it is going to be wavelength divided by the period. Wavelength is the distance from crest to crest. Period is the time it takes from get to crest from crest. If you increase the time it takes, you're going slower. The speed is down. If you decrease the time it takes, it means that crest is coming faster, increase speed. And lastly, three types of waves. The deep water wave, no other information, is just coming from the deeper water in the ocean. Shallow water would be less water, which happens as you get close to the sand. So it's going to build up, and then there's those breakers, and the waves crash into the surf. And the undertow is what brings it back out. That takes the sand and other particles back out to sea.